Greetings sailors and welcome back to World of Warships and a destroyer game courtesy of Chaser 617 here. Now this is a Z-46 game, it's going to be on the NA server, and the Z-46 itself is a pretty good tier 9 destroyer, or at least I like to think so. It has a decent enough combination of stats. It doesn't shine in any one particular area except perhaps for having that hydro. Otherwise it's got okay stealth, the torps are okay, the AA is, well, it's destroyer AA. If it's not a European destroyer then it doesn't really count. Speed's decent, the smokes are a bit on the short side, but you know, they're still usable, and overall it's really quite a decent little ship. It just doesn't excel in any one particular area. It does also have pretty good AP shells, as do most of the, I think, is that a feature still of all the German destroyers? I can't remember. I know there's been some monkeying around with different characteristics of different shells, but the upcoming 15cm guns are also all going to have very good AP. That's going to be their gimmick as well, except obviously larger caliber and a rather slower rate of fire. So we know for sure there is a destroyer blocking this cap, but it doesn't seem like they are supported by really much of anything, and they've actually now ducked out of the cap. So it looks like maybe they are trying to fall back. I don't know. We'll see what he can spot, because he might get out-spotted, but I can't even remember what the actual spotting, the concealment of that other destroyer is, but I guess we'll see soon enough who spots who first. But otherwise on the map, well, you can see the enemy team have taken the middle, and there's some contesting going up on the north. So his own team has split between the A and C caps, whereas the enemy team is more clustered around the B and C caps, which means they have more firepower, more kind of tightly grouped together. So that might be a problem, especially for those allied ships in the north, because they're going to be taking fire from not only across the C cap but from the B cap as well. Anyway, there it is. It's Halland, as you would have seen from the minimap, and he does actually outspot this Halland, so he's able to get off the first shots. The Halland, of course, does have a heal but no smoke, so they have no possibility of disengaging once they are spotted, basically. And so really they should be firing back right now, but it seems like they're desperately trying to preserve the possibility of getting unspotted here. But they do not have the wriggle room. They are right back up against the border, and so they are basically doomed. And you think they either maybe would have bugged out earlier, or at least tried to fire back, knowing that they could at least try and do some damage before they went down, but they really didn't do either. So that's an enemy tier 10 destroyer out, but that's basically at the same time as they lost a gearing up north. So yeah, and in fact their forces up north are really not looking so healthy. They've only got 2 ships left up there now. So yeah, my prediction, well, I say a prediction, you know, I already knew what was going to happen with this, obviously, having seen the replay, but even if I hadn't, you could look at the way that each team had split up, disported itself, and guessed that that was probably going to happen. So he's now trying to set up for a drop on, it looks like the Richelieu, and there's another battleship back there as well. The enemy team seem to have basically not ignored the mid-cap for now, but they certainly weren't blocking it, or they don't seem to have been trying to actively take it back or anything like that. So I think all their attention has basically gone to those ships up north, and so that's let them get this B cap. In fact, I think it was the Friesland that would have done the capping. Yeah, and there's now an opportunity to maybe take out a couple of enemy ships and weaken the enemy team a bit, because this team is at a bit of a disadvantage right now. Not a huge one, but they have lost 2 destroyers to the only enemy casualty being a destroyer plus a battleship, and the 2 battleships are on the 10 line. They're trying to make a getaway, but I don't think it'll be a spoiler to say that they're not going to succeed. Anyway, 2 torp hits into that Richelieu, and there's a flooding. Chaser's also spotted briefly by these planes, and he's being targeted by somebody, but the Friesland will have popped their AA, and that means that I think they only really would have gotten like 1 pass there. So they weren't too big a threat. He hasn't actually lost any health yet. And as it happens, his flooding is what takes the kill on that Richelieu, so that's rather nice. It wasn't a huge amount of damage, so these torps don't do a huge amount of damage, but it was enough between the flooding to take an enemy battleship out of commission, which is rather nice. So now the Alaska and that Bismarck are dead. The enemy team is now going to be bringing the entirety of their attention to what's left of this team, which is now itself half dead, for the cost of only 2 enemy ships. This is not shaping up particularly well, and so really they have to hang on to this middle, and they have to not lose any more allies. But that cluster of 3 ships on the left there, I mean, they've got that destroyer out ahead of them, and I don't think the carrier is particularly trying to help them there. The Friesland, of course, if it gets to fire at an enemy destroyer, is a very, very nasty ship, but I don't remember the Friesland being a particularly fast ship, so that enemy destroyer might just be able to keep ahead of them. And there we go, that Benson's actually just killed the Tirpitz as well, which leaves that Venezia kind of hanging out there on its own. This is not going well. This is really, really not going well. I was sat there thinking, how on earth is this going to be salvageable at this stage? Over half the team is dead, and it's not like this team has been entirely incompetent. It's just that initial split really did this team no favours, and now it's just an absolutely desperate scramble to survive. So with the Ohio pushing into the cap for some reason, that's been a ripe opportunity to do a bit more gun damage, more use of the AP shells there, but nothing hugely substantial. He's jumped up to now over 50k, but this is not going to be a particularly high damage game, although certainly you can say by the end of it Chaser will have heavily contributed to the outcome being what it is. But it's still, from this point forwards, going to get rather more fraught than it has been up until now, because he's still not lost any health. He's still got his full complement of hit points, and I'll tell you now, oh boy, he's going to need it. This is definitely a superintendent, not superintendent. I've forgotten the name of it, but the skill that gives you more hit points, that one. Superintendent's the one that gives you more consumables, which he clearly doesn't have. But yeah, he's got the more hit point skill, and that's certainly going to prove to be absolutely vital to how this one turns out. So, very low health Mogador, that's an easy kill. He also briefly got blasted with some Hydro, and oh dear, well, that's not ideal, but it's only slowed him down a little bit. It's not like there's any planes immediately nearby to worry about. And that's actually a fairly useful kill, but the Mogador, it's not like it's a sneaky torpedo boat or anything, so if they'd had a chance to sit behind cover and pew at things, they might have been dangerous, but the days of being able to sit and pew from open water were definitely done at that point. Anyway, so there is the Yugamo spotted via, well, would have to be radar, surely. But unfortunately, he himself is picked up on this FDG's Hydro, and somebody is targeting him right now. I think that's the Rune. So he's just using this opportunity to fire while he's definitely spotted, because there's not much else he can do, and he's really starting to lose some hit points now. Now with the Hydro, the Friesland has gone down, so this lovely long-lasting Friesland smokescreen is of absolutely no use whatsoever. But even with the Hydro, with these Torps absolutely being spotted, the De Grosser just isn't paying attention. So that's another kill. However, he is very definitely still spotted right now, and having run into the island, that was not a particularly smooth move, so this might be a good time for another smoke. And yep, there we go. He doesn't stick himself before he puts the smoke down, so he's taken maybe a little more damage than he needed to strictly. But now he's got the problem of this Bismarck being very nearly also in Hydro range, although maybe their Hydro's on cooldown because he's not actually spotted at the moment. But there's no guarantee they won't pop Hydro at literally any second, so killing the Bismarck is absolutely a top priority right now. And this is the stage of the game where the enemy is really starting to seriously just overextend. I don't quite know how to categorise this, but they've just lost a whole bunch of ships all of a sudden. And so what was looking like a very overwhelming game in the enemy team's favour, at least in terms of numbers, is now looking actually rather tighter than it was. But this team's still on the back foot in terms of numbers, and certainly in terms of the health of the ships they have remaining. But they've not actually, because they haven't been able to take that middle cap, they've not actually they're not doing so well in terms of points right now. And I think Chaser, realising that hanging on to this mid cap as long as possible is, you know, going to be absolutely vital, actually pushes back in. This is a super risky move, especially as he could be spotted by planes and won't have smoke available, and is getting blind fired rather nastily by the Colbert, who managed to shave off, that was what, another couple of thousand hit points that he really could not afford to lose. So he's now super low health. If planes come overhead, he's dead. If the Rune pops a Hydro and gets close enough, he is dead, but he's at least blocking the cap for the time being. And with every enemy ship they kill, they actually increase their points lead. So these last couple of ships are doing some real heavy lifting here. In fact, it's these last alive ships are the only ones with any kills, including the CV. So yeah, this has turned out to be a really weird end game to this match. So, planes on the hunt, but we don't know if they're on the hunt for him specifically. Although, they're getting a bit close. This thing does not have especially good AA. And yep, he gets air spotted. Doesn't land any hits on the Rune either, which has got to be a bit disappointing, but there's not a lot you can do about that. The Rune was backing away. And there's the Colbert, who is less than 10 kilometers away. That is worryingly close. At this point, he pops a smoke and crosses his fingers, because a single Colbert shell would have to be enough. But he gets lucky. He absolutely gets lucky, and yeah, the Colbert does not manage to nail him. However, this Colbert knows exactly how low health he is, and so just starts peppering the smoke. Oh, this is proper. This is proper clench time right now. This is just, oof. Okay, that Colbert has come so close to killing Chaser that they probably would not even realise it unless they saw this replay, and would probably feel a bit cheated. But yeah. Still though, Chaser's luck has held somehow, and he is able to get out of there alive on very few hit points. He's basically got no consumables left apart from that one speed boost, and in terms of his allies, it's the carrier and the Venezia, and we can't even see how healthy the Venezia is, but they are under some heavy shelling at the moment. And there we go, we can see they found the Benson as well, which the friendly Lex maybe could have made more of an effort to find, but having said that, I suspect that the Lexington player was probably in a situation where they just had too many potential things they could have done at once, because you can only choose one place to be at a time, of course, or one target to go after, and so they chose to go after the things that were definitely spotted that they could definitely do something about, rather than spend the time hunting in the area, wasting precious moments trying to find a destroyer. Anyway, the Venezia and the Colbert actually mutually annihilate each other. The Rune is still, as far as we know, in the middle. It doesn't look like they moved to support the Colbert at all, so I don't know, that could have been a vital move if the Rune had been a bit closer by at this point, but no, the Rune played it super cautious. They are one of the surviving ships, but if you look at the points, if you look at the time left, even though the Z-46 we're seeing on screen is about 2 rivets away from just collapsing into the ocean, it's still alive. And the carrier has also taken some damage, but has at least a bit more health. But just based on time and points, they're going to win this. Unless the enemy carrier manages to somehow light them up, and the Rune somehow miraculously is able to do the damage in the time remaining. But I don't think that's going to happen somehow. If the Rune had been further forward and the Venezia had, if between them they had killed the Venezia before the Colbert had died, which with their combined firepower they might well have been able to do, then this could potentially have been a different outcome, but there might just still have been not enough time in it. It's not like there's a big points gap right now, though. There really isn't. It's just the fact that we've come down to the very last seconds of this game in terms of, it's a full 20-minuter. And so they had a points lead for long enough that at the end, when it mattered, they won. So that was a real nail-biter. I mean, it went from looking like a fairly hopeless case for a win, especially when they were half their team down and the enemy team had only lost, a quarter? So yeah, that didn't look like it was going to be recoverable from that point, because it usually isn't. But just the last couple of players managed to hold their nerve, and the enemy team had enough people that just, didn't pay attention, threw things, didn't work together properly, that it ended up being an incredibly close win for this team, for Chaser's team. So that's not a result you can really count on happening very often, and if you're on the winning side when it does, it's incredibly satisfying, and if you're on the losing team, especially if you have yourself been fighting really hard for a win, it can be incredibly frustrating when the rest of your team manages to just turn around and throw it all away, as happened there. So anyway, that's about it for this replay. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and if you have, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.